In this lesson, we're going to be discussing the collecting of information and note-taking process as it pertains to this specific project. So let's get started. So for this part of the project, you will need the handout titled iProjects Stages 3 and 4. This is information retrieval and processing. So some people do it where they retrieve all the information for every topic and then they process it. And some people prefer to chunk it. I'm going to grab this information for this part of my presentation, and then I'm going to process it, plunk it in, and I'm going to go back and kind of loop through it. So that's why we say stages 3 and 4. It just depends on how you want to approach it. For this lesson today, we're going to look at secondary information specifically and note-taking. Note-taking can be so challenging when you haven't done it for a while, and that idea of reading something and deconstructing it into small pieces that you can work with can be really challenging. In this section, you'll also look at primary information, but for this video, we're going to focus on secondary information and note-taking. So I'm going to switch it up here. If you remember, my original plan for my presentation was going to be mycology. I had done a little mind map on mycology, which is the study of fungi. And my first category of information that I was going to find was on characteristics and traits of fungi and their roles in ecosystems. So I went and I found myself a really good resource from Lumen Learning, and I've got ecology of fungi, and then it's got all these headings as well: fungi habitat, decomposition and recycling, little other subheadings, mutualistic relationships with fungi and fungivores. I realize that other people might not find this as interesting as I do, but I really think it's neat. So then I'm going to be prepared because I've already got my final presentation sort of laid out, and I've got this sample note-taking page. Now you have in yours, I've recreated this so that I can use this as a demonstration, but you'll notice in your iProject handout, if you scroll down or you look on the next page, there is an example of this. So I've kind of recreated that in Google Docs with my main topic, characteristics and traits of fungi. My resource, this is titled Ecology of Fungi. And the other thing is I really want to make sure that I track my sources, because sources are extremely important part of research. You need to be able to justify where you got your information from. So we'll talk a little bit about that after. But let's look at content first. So the idea when you're looking at taking notes and really deconstructing information is you want to take it, this large piece of information, and you want to break it into tiny chunks. I call this shrinking the text. You're taking the big ideas that are discussed in all of this, and you are breaking them into small workable pieces for understanding. Then what you do when you present that information is you restructure and put together those little pieces so that they make sense for your intended audience. So I'm going to start at the top here. So even with just this first line, look at that. It's long, it's a sentence, and breaking things down means we're taking keywords and we're using the smallest amount of writing that we possibly can. So fungi are the major decomposers of nature. They break down organic matter, which could otherwise not be recycled. So what I'm going to take from that is they are decomposers. They break down and recycle components of nature. Had a moment there. So they break down and recycle parts of the natural environment. Beautiful. What else can we find in here? So we've got, they play a crucial role in balancing ecosystems. Oh, to me, that is really important, the idea of balancing ecosystems. Oops, and I did not spell that correctly. The next piece, and you might not do this with every single line that you come across, but that's okay. They colonize most habitats on Earth, preferring dark, moist conditions. They thrive in seemingly hostile environments, such as the tundra. They grow on the forest floor, where dark and damp environment is rich in decaying debris from plants and animals. In the environments, fungi play a major role as decomposers and recyclers, making it possible for members of the other kingdoms to be supplied with nutrients and to live. So a big piece here of balance. Oops, that's the wrong one. Whoop. There we go. Balancing ecosystems is they recycle nutrients. So they take that decaying tree in the forest that's kind of laying across the forest floor. The fungi come in and they break it completely down so that those nutrients can be recycled, put back into the earth, and grow more plants. That's really cool. So let's say I keep going through here, I'm breaking, I'll take one more point out of here. The food web would be incomplete without organisms that decompose organic matter. Some elements such as nitrogen and phosphorus are required in large quantities in biological systems, yet they are not abundant in the environment. The action of fungi releases these elements from decaying matter, making them available to living organisms. So that's kind of what I had just said. So let's put that into words. So they take nitrogen and phosphorus and break them down from organic matter and place them back in the soil for further generations to grow. And you may process it this way. This is how I process this right now. But I might come back to it and readjust that tiny chunk after. So there's more I could take, but we're going to stick to this for now. Break it into tiny chunks. That's the most important part of note taking. The other thing I want to mention is this little beauty right here. I know that this is the website where I got my information, but if you remember in your presentation that the very final page is references. Your references should be in APA format. So, and they are also in alphabetical order all the time. So I need to make sure I prepare my reference because I know I'm going to use this information. So I'm going to go to BibMe, or you can use Citation Machine. I'm going to go to website and I'm going to plug in my website. Here we go. I've got a little bit of information on this. It's checking my, oops. Where are we going here? Okay, BibMe is not working super beautifully today. So we're gonna try manual entry mode. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna enter all your information, you create the citation, and then you can literally copy and paste that citation properly formatted into both your notes page so that you have it and into your mycology or your presentation, which would go at the end. A big thing to remember, guys, is that this final reference page always has to be in alphabetical order. If you want to get really fancy, there's two options for this reference page. You also can put it in bullets, in bullet form, kind of like what you see right here, right now, or you can do what we call a hanging indent, where the first part of the sentence is kind of butt up against the margin, and any following lines are indented. It's like the reverse of a regular paragraph indent. So those are options for your references. Now, the other thing that we need to make sure that we note is that we always use in-text citations on the pages where we are entering this information. So on these two pages, let's say all my information on this page comes from my Lumen Learning website, then I need to have an in-text citation on that page. So through the magic of technology, I've magically gone and taken all these notes, and I have got a proper proper end citation. So I figured that out using BibMe, I would take that and plug it into my references. You'll notice that it looks a little funny right now, but that's okay. You would want to change that before you actually present it, but it's a good way of tracking everything. So now that I've gone through and I have also discovered what my in-text citation would be, then I would want to, this is more stage 4. This is where I'm starting to process my information, figure out where it's going to go. So I found information. I thought I was going to find information about characteristics and traits of fungi. I kind of did a little bit, but in the end, I found a lot more about the ecological function of fungi. So I thought this was going to fit in the first part, but it actually fits better in the second part. And this is what happens when you process your information. You end up finding out that I thought I was going to get this, but I got this. So it has to fit a different spot. So I am going to plug that in. Instead, it would go into research question 2, which apparently is not wanting to come up here. So I would have ecological functions of fungi. And I would have more of my information going into here. It's a little slow. Apparently, I have too many tabs open. So, so I would start usually by figuring out and taking some of my notes and figuring out, okay, what is going to go from here into what slide? And then I would go from there. I would usually take this information and I would pop it into the notes page. But before I really want to do that, I really want to think about, what information, if I've got to put this on 2 different slides, then how's that going to work? So naturally, I feel like it kind of separates a little bit right here. This starts really talking in detail about some examples of different ways that there are symbiotic relationships between fungi and different things. So in here, we talk about that they have a general symbiotic relationship and what symbiosis is. Then we get into the example of lichen and insects and specifically leaf-cutting ants and how they work together with fungi. So what I would do is I would probably start and I would have this information. I would copy that and I would put that in my topic 2, probably the second slide. I would take it and put it into my speaker notes. And the reason I put it into my speaker notes first is because I'm not just going to put a bunch of notes on a page, because you want to be able to get this information across, but it may not look like that to your audience. You're going to tell them these things, and you need some visual cues on here, whether that's a few points or maybe there's some images that you discuss. But this is the information that's going to go in here. So my first chunk of information is going to go in the first part of that. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that into topic 2 in my speaker notes. And then once I actually start really creating stage 5, I start creating this presentation, then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to make this work. But in the meantime, we really want to be able to plug that information in. Another thing that I would absolutely do when I'm entering this information is I would put in where your information came from. So I'm going to put in here Lumen Learning 2019. It's going to be in brackets or parentheses, and I'm going to make sure that I keep that tracked. So I remember once I'm like 8 sources in, if you're doing lots of research and you have more information in here, then you want to make sure you might have another piece of information in this topic and you're plugging it in here. So let's say I've got more information from Smith 2017. Then I'm taking notes in there. I need to make sure that I'm clear that there are different pieces of information coming from different sources, even on this slide. And I need to be able to track those. So that's a little bit on stage 3 and 4, where you're actually retrieving the information and taking notes, and then processing it and plugging it into your presentation. I hope that clarifies things for you, and good luck. Contact me with any questions.